A plated super trainer in 2026? Yeah, I think that's still needed. But a plated Rebel? Wait, isn't this just the SC Trainer V4? I guess we'll find out. I've got on one of the most hyped shoes of the summer. Got my first run in the SC Rebel V1. First few steps out of the box, and I am super excited for this one. So this shoe is a new lineup from New Balance, but come on guys, you're not gonna fool the ones that have actually been running for a while and have run in your shoes. This is the SC Trainer V4. Like, what's the need for a name change? That's so annoying. What I'm feeling so far is you have this new Infinion foam that is found in the SC Elite V6. It's an aliphatic TPU that is somewhat soft, but also bouncy. So you have this energy arc plate that runs the entirety of the shoe, that starts out high and goes into a low plate configuration. So you have a soft heel, which does feel stable and secure, and the plate dips all the way down to the bottom of the shoe, and then underneath that is barely any foam, and then the outsole. And what that feels like is a little bit of compression and then some bounce and roll through in the heel. But then the forefoot is very snappy. It's not bouncy, but it has a roll through and a very sharp snap, which means this shoe wants to go fast. Right now, I'm running around marathon pace. Earlier, I was around half marathon pace. Not really even stepping on the gas too hard. This would be a great companion to a race day shoe. If you wanted to save your race day shoe for more of your actual race efforts and your races, but you wanted a shoe that kind of mimics your race day shoe, but is more durable and is meant to be more of that long run shoe mileage eater. A lot of brands have kind of gone away from this niche category where you have a plated long run shoe. You see a lot of non-plated shoes on the market. Most of your super trainers right now are non-plated. And I think the market has shifted away from using a plate in everything, which is good. The plate does add weight. So if there was no plate in this shoe, how much lighter would it be? You would get more foam underfoot. So I can't speak to whether or not it's really needed, but I will say that it does feel snappy, and it does fill a slot in my rotation that right now has a gap. And that plate, that low scooping energy arc plate, is doing the work. Not that it's providing bounce, but it does provide shape to the midsole, and it kind of tells your foot how to interact with the shoe. I do feel a thinner forefoot with the low plate. I definitely get a lot of that plate feel. For a shoe that's intended to be a long run shoe, I don't know if this would feel comfortable after 2+ hours of feeling my foot smash down into that plate, and then under the plate there's basically nothing but rubber. A couple thoughts that are different from yesterday. There's definitely a low volume fit in this shoe. The upper is definitely more on the constrictive side, not stretchy, not really open to different foot shapes. I have a normal width foot, and I definitely feel like it's low volume in the midfoot, and even somewhat low volume in the forefoot in the toe box. So I know of a few runners that already had to send theirs back after one run, or even on initial try-in. So if you have a wider foot, a high volume foot, this shoe probably won't work for you. Even for me, like I said, normal width foot, I'm wondering if, even for me, if this shoe is not gonna work. They went for a more of a race fit, snug upper, but in a training shoe. So kind of a weird strategy from New Balance. But if this shoe works for you, then I think the upper is gonna be really dialed and you're really gonna enjoy it. The next thing I wanna talk about is this rocker and toe spring. So it's kind of more of a toe spring than a true rocker. You have it flat through the heel, midfoot, and into the forefoot, and then it feels like it falls off of a cliff once you get past the balls of your feet. And so, yes, you do have a 4mm drop, 40 millimeters dropping into 36 in the forefoot for a 4mm drop, but it really feels even thinner than that, not just because what I was saying yesterday on my last run is that, yes, you do have this thinner forefoot feel because of a low plate configuration, but you also have this thinner forefoot, even more thin than the 36 is advertised because of the toe spring, which is the sharp angle where your toes are pointed more upward at the forefoot of the shoe into the toe box. It just really causes a sharp angle, and it's not discomforting, or it's not uncomfortable for me. But what it does is that it really means that the forefoot has this sharp, snappy turnover, which is great, but at the same time, you have a very thin feeling forefoot. So it does turn over fast. You do feel quick in it, but I think if I ran longer than like 90 minutes in this shoe, I would definitely be feeling some discomfort from the plate feel and also from the very thin forefoot in the soft Infinion foam that I would be bottoming out. So the sizing on this is definitely off. It feels like a half size short. I'm between sizes 11.5 and 12. I typically have been going with a size 12, especially in New Balance. I always go my higher half size, but even in my higher half size, based on how the shoe fits, it almost feels like a 12.5 would be what I should go for, but then I might be having too much length. So I don't know. This will be a tough shoe to get the sizing right. This foam is very special. Infinion foam. I do want to try the New Balance SC Elite V6 with the same foam. You know, of course, it's in a different application. It's in a race shoe instead of a training shoe. But this shoe has me confused about whether or not I want to keep it, whether or not it really is worth the $200. In some ways, I'm like, man, this really is a banger. It fills a need in the market and in my rotation. You know, I still think there is a place for plated super trainers that have a speed orientation. In the same breath, I think about this shoe, what would it feel like without a plate? So that's a question that I think will leave the running community wondering, what if this shoe had no plate and just had more Infinion foam? Would it be more explosive and bouncy and special? we'll never know, but we have to just judge what we do have and give the review for the shoe that's in front of us, that's on our feet. And that's what we have to go with. So, you know, the P-Back's carbon plate is snappy. It does give you some flexion in the forefoot. So overall, it's a nice package. I think when I'm doing the reps, it really does come alive. I think it's faster, on the faster end than most of my super trainers, even faster than the Mega Blast, the Topo Spectre 3. This foam and this plate, the low configuration, the snap, the toe spring, it really does launch you forward. It's just, man, the upper really kind of ruins this shoe. If you want a plated, special, quick, snappy shoe for like 30 or 40 more dollars, you can get a race shoe. You can find a used race shoe on the Supwell app for cheaper than $200. So join the Supwell app. You know, I just don't think this shoe is worth $213. 8 or so miles in the SC Rebel V1. I'll see you guys at the post-run debrief. Welcome to the post-run debrief of the SC Rebel V1, a shoe that has gotten mixed reviews, but a shoe that I am very excited to test for you on this channel. Starting off, I will say I have tested the SC Trainer V1 and V2, but I did skip version 3, and I have tested the Rebel V4. So that's kind of my experience level with the Trainer and the Rebel. And if I was going to quantify what this shoe is all about at the outset, I would say it is an amalgamation of those two shoes. So the SC Trainer, Super Comp Trainer, is no more. They killed off that line, but they brought in this as its replacement. But the same question that I asked myself in the intro video, I do find that this shoe really is the continuation of the SC Trainer line. I don't know why they wanted to change the language on this shoe. It is kind of confusing now because when people hear Rebel, they're going to think of the standard Rebel with no plate, and now they have another Rebel with a plate. So, New Balance, stop confusing the customer. I do not like the naming of this shoe. So, I don't want to be negative, but that's my feedback for this name. The shoe names are getting way out of control. That's a different topic for a different day. But for this shoe alone, I wish you would have just kept it the SC Trainer and called it version 4. So without further ado, let's get into the upper on this shoe. You have right here, you can see it. It says Phantom Fit. That's the naming of their upper. It's a Phantom Fit upper. It's just a very open and airy, breathable mesh upper. You have some overlays here with the logo, the N for New Balance on both sides. You do have a little bit of this overlay in this heel counter. So there are a few overlays. There's overlays where you see this gray, darker gray color where it feels more plasticky. And you have some little stitching overlays up near the toe box. Overall, the toe box itself, we'll start there. It is constrictive. It does kind of taper off kind of sharply towards the toes. You do have just you do have a very streamlined fit in this upper. So if you have a narrow foot, you'll really enjoy the way that this fits and feels. My foot is on the normal to narrow and it feels all right, but I must say right around here in this upper midfoot area, it does feel very constrictive. You also have a very shallow toe box. So if you have any issues with a high, or if you have a high volume foot and you have issues with a low volume upper, you are not going to like the way that this fits and feels. Just gonna be honest. So if you have a wide foot or a high volume foot, this shoe is a shoe that you should not even consider buying. But for me, it does work even if it feels a little bit snug. Also, I typically half size up for New Balance shoes. So for me, I'm between 11.5 and 12. I typically go with 12 just to have that extra room up front. I like to have a full thumbs width, but this definitely is a shoe that you should half size up. It is not true to size, and even in my size 12, I thought maybe a 12.5 would have been better, but I don't know if that would have been too long up at the toes. I do have about a half thumb's width, and it does work. You have this kind of a, not too rigid, but a little bit of a rigid heel collar. It is lightly padded, and overall, I think it locks the foot down. I don't have any heel slip, but those are just some concerns I have with the sizing, and this upper is kind of a miss. Moving to the outsole, this outsole is pretty tacky. I think it's gonna be durable. You do have some exposed midsole foam here. I'm only 9 miles in, and I am seeing a little bit of wear, but at this point, it looks cosmetic. There shouldn't be any real wear of note only 9 miles in on a shoe. But the rubber is a cast polyurethane, or CPU, so about 2.5 millimeters thick from what I found online. It is, I mean, it's hard to even see it. It's super thin, but it is tacky. It should be durable and keeps the weight pretty light on this shoe. This shoe comes in at 7.7 ounces in the men's US 9 sample size, so it does have a nice lightweight package here. You have the Infinion foam, which I showed that name earlier. It is the top tier race foam compound from New Balance. It's an aliphatic TPU. This seems to be more tuned for daily training, but it does have a very soft and punchy bounce. So you have 40 millimeters of stack in the heel, 36 in the forefoot for a 4 millimeter drop. You also have this energy arc plate that runs throughout the entirety of the midsole. It is a carbon infused P-backs plate, so you do get a little bit of flexion throughout the plate, but it does have some rigidity as well. So this is a low plate configuration. I talked about it on the run, where the plate starts out high and scoops down low. It comes down, it scoops down low into the forefoot, and basically there's not much that separates the ground from the plate. So you have a little bit of foam on top of the plate, which gives you a nice bounce and energy return. But when you get off the toe, you get a really snappy turnover. And I was talking about it on the run, in my second run, but you can really see how it's flat. There's not much rocker, and then you have a pretty sharp toe spring, and you even see it in the upper. See how right here it really springs upward in the toe box, which I think really contributes to the shallow feeling that I was kind of getting when I was up on the toes. This shoe really is well suited for intervals. You can do track workout in this shoe. You can do long run with pace in this shoe. But just when I was getting up on it, how I run, I really mashed this forefoot. I'm not a high cadence runner. I'm a heavier power runner, stride runner. So I'm really pressing the foam like to its limits at around 205, 210 pounds. And I definitely felt like it was a little bit thin in the forefoot, like up on the toe. See how, look at that. See the toe spring? You really get this thin midsole. So when it measures the 36, it's somewhere back here. But look at this. The difference between 36 and up here is probably a 10 millimeter difference. So you have 40, 36, somewhere around here, and then upwards probably into the mid to low 20s up here, all the way at the toes. So not a lot of foam underfoot. You feel a lot of that plate and that ground feel. So that might be a good thing for some and not so good for others. I do think if you're hanging back here on a long run where you're just a little bit up tempo, maybe half marathon or marathon pace, it would feel pleasant. But if you're trying to really rip in this shoe, it's gonna feel thin and you're gonna get a lot of plate feel. But overall, this Infinion foam, I'll show it to you. Look at that, just collapsing. Super soft. And then when you get up here, because there's a plate, it is just not that soft. So it almost feels disjointed a little bit. You have this soft and squishy Rebel back here, and that's very characteristic of the Rebel. The Rebel V4 was one of my worst shoes of all time because it was so soft and there was not any energy return for me whatsoever. And then you get somewhere up here and it starts to feel like the SC Trainer of old. So there you go, the SC Rebel / Trainer. You have the Rebel in the back and the Trainer in the front. You also do feel that 4mm drop. So if you're a person that does not normally get along well with the 4mm drop, you are going to feel that in this shoe. So going forward, I do hope they keep this line going. They can keep calling it Rebel, whatever. But in the version 2 or the SC Trainer V5, I hope that they can change the upper. They can make it more open, less constrictive, and less shallow in the forefoot, and open the midfoot up a little bit more. I do think that the geometry in this shoe is good, but they should add more of a rocker and less of a toe spring. I want to see some of that foam come forward towards the forefoot, but maybe they could shave off in the heel and make more of a heel bevel and have a nice rocker. This shoe would be so much better if it was like a plated Dynafish Xiaoyan. Although I think there are some characteristics to this shoe that I do like, I think that it is a miss for most people. But if it works for you, I think it's going to be an amazing shoe that you will love to have in your rotation. I kind of alluded to it in the intro and talked about it on the run. I do think that plated super trainers do have a place still in the rotation in 2026. I think this could really be a banger in the next iteration with some small tweaks. The formula is there. The makings of a really great modern super trainer are there, but on some level, maybe it would be better without a plate, and they could fill in this with more foam in here and have it really be more of a robust, substantial super trainer in the same vein as the Super Blast 3 and the Adidas Hyperboost Edge. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe that question still remains to be seen, but what would this shoe look like with the Infinion aliphatic TPU foam that is very energetic, very bouncy, just without a plate? But putting this shoe against a couple shoes that are in its same ballpark and market that I think you should consider buying instead, if you want a long run beast of a shoe, consider buying the Adidas Hyperboost Edge. I feel like it's just as bouncy, just as energetic. You get more foam underfoot, and I feel like it's a better long run beast. If you want a shoe that has the same kind of punchiness and softness without a plate, the Topo Spectre 3 for me is a better shoe overall. I feel like it's just as good at the intervals, but better on the longer runs, better at daily paces, and just a more pleasant shoe to run in. And then lastly, if you want a shoe that's maybe a little bit more on the cruiser side of things, but can still do a lot of what this shoe does, but for a cheaper price, that is the Dynafish Xiaoyan coming in at $130. I just think this shoe is a little bit overpriced. The Topo Spectre 3 is $170. The Dynafish Xiaoyan is $130. And lastly, a shoe that is also like this shoe for the long run, but very bouncy and energetic, is the Leaning Red Hair 9 Ultra coming in at $160. I think all of those shoes are better than this shoe. I think it's mispriced at $200, and I would have loved to see it around $170 or $180. They're justifying the price with this plate and with this foam, but honestly, it's overpriced, man. It's just a lightweight super trainer with the plate that does have some snap, but not a shoe that I would think that you would want to run a race in or be in longer than 90 minutes personally. So there you have it, my review of the SC Rebel V1. As always, every mile counts, and stay on that daily grind. I'll catch you guys on the next one.